Hello my friends, you're on the channel Eco Darius. My name is Daria and today I'm going to talk about the movie that didn't receive the attention it deserves. The movie is called Minamata. I decided to choose this movie not because of Johnny Depp, but because it's super relevant to the current situation around the climate crisis. It's environmentally oriented, it shows consequences of uncontrolled pollution, and the story behind the plot influenced so much international and national environmental laws. Well, don't forget about likes and comments, they make me very inspired for my future works and ideas. Spoiler alert, because I scrutinize movies for you. And make yourself tea or coffee. We are going to have a very nice time together. And let's begin. Minamata is a drama film directed by Andrew Levitas and starred by Johnny Depp. It was released in 2020 and got quite average ratings and reviews. I think this is because the movie's narrative is unhurried and the story feels a little bit sluggish despite it tries to encompass a very large period of time. The story is based on real events and tells us about how American professional photographer Eugene Smith was working on his last photo essay accusing environmental crime in Japan, where the huge chemical factory was discharging dangerous wastewaters into the bay and poisoning the local population. So let's focus on the environmental crime that actually happened in Japan. Minamata grew the city in 1949, located in a pure nature next to the picturesque Minamata Bay. That time, the local citizens were involved in fishing. In 1950s, they started to notice that the local cats were acting very weirdly. Unsteady walk, strange twitches, and quick death. Soon, in April 1956, the first patient with a strange disease got into the hospital. It was a 5-year-old girl. She has convulsions, problems with movements, and speech. 2 days later, her sister was also hospitalized with the same symptoms. Doctors didn't know what it was. The other patients were discovered and sent to the hospital. It was some new unknown disease affecting the nervous system. Maybe an infection, maybe a new epidemic. In May same year, the city government and medical practitioners formed the Strange Disease Countermeasure Committee. During its investigations, the committee uncovered evidence of strange erratic cats' behavior, dead drops of birds, and floats of dead fish. Among the locals, the disease got its first name, dancing cat disease. The scale of the illness spread. Other symptoms were general muscle weakness, damage to memory, hearing, and peripheral vision. By December, it was known there are about 40 infected cases, and an alarming case fatality rate reached 35%. Scientists from the Kumamoto University Research Group found a lead to solve this case. All victims were from the fisherman villages along the shore of Minamata Bay. They all ate the same staple food, which is invariably fish and shellfish from this bay. Researchers concluded that the outbreak was caused by some fish poisoning with the heavy metals. But where did this poison come from? Then, the Chiso chemical factory came into the spotlight. They were suspects in the discharge of reagents into the bay. The first analysis, conducted by the company itself, had shown that there are a lot of the lead, mercury, arsenic, selenium, thallium, copper, and manganese in wastewaters. Once the cause was found, there was a hope to stop spread of the disease. Now scientists needed to figure out what was the exact poison responsible for the disease. The British neurologist Douglas McAlpine helped to solve this case. He said that the symptoms of the disease was very similar to organic mercury poisoning. As it turned out that the mercury itself is not that dangerous as mercury that is being eaten and processed by microorganisms in water. When mercury is bioaccumulated and biomagnified in shellfish, fish, and other marine animals all along the food chain, mercury turns to one of the most dangerous neurotoxins, methylmercury. Does it feel to you as a response of nature to the polluting activities of the people? Surprisingly, methylmercury was not accumulated much in waters, but in biosystems. Plants absorb mercury, little fish eat these plants, then large fish eat the little ones, and finally people consume large fish. At the every food chain level, the concentration of mercury increases. Additionally, methylmercury is very well absorbed in humans' body. It mimics the important component of protein, methionine, and penetrates into the body. It imitates this component so well that even the placental barrier in the pregnant woman's body doesn't stop methylmercury from the accumulation in a fetus. In Minamata, there were 40 newborns with the disease. Some of them had paralysis, some seizures, others loss of speech. Chiso and the Kumamoto government did little to prevent the epidemic. They even didn't stop the discharge of wastewaters into the bay. How it's possible? To understand it, we need to go deeper to history, to the beginning of the 20th century. Please meet Shitagao Noguchi, a father of Japanese chemical industry. In 1896, he graduated from the University of Tokyo, a study place for rich offsprings and future government officials. Among the principal students who were taught there were the strong one is a rich one, the fastest way to become rich is an exploitation of cheap workforce, and so on. In 1906, Shitagao Noguchi built a hydroelectric station in Kagashima. It was decided to use surplus energy for the new carbide factory. To choose the place for the factory, Noguchi was looking for the site with the cheapest workforce possible, where the poorest people lived, who would be happy for the minimum wages. At the end, he was choosing between two villages, Kaminotso and Minamata. People were so happy for their calming employment and infrastructure, so they started to offer the land for a very low price. Minamata citizens suggested buying poles and power lines at their own expense. Noguchi agreed. In 1908, the Chiso Corporation opened a chemical factory in Minamata. Soon this factory became the most advanced in all of Japan before and after the World War II. With the new factory, the Minamata village prospered. Chiso and its subsidiaries were responsible for a quarter of all jobs in the village. New infrastructure, roads, trade, transportation. Soon, the company started to produce all possible chemical products. In 1921, Noguchi bought a patent for ammonia synthesis. In 2 years, the dead fish floated up. Noguchi immediately understood that the problem was in the wastewater discharge and decided to compensate the lost fish to villagers, but not too much. And this practice continued for years. At the same time, company didn't take the responsibility for the environmental degradation. They were paying to people only because they were caring for them. In 1932, Chiso started to produce acetaldehyde, a raw material for synthetic polymers, perfumes, dyes, medicines, and photochemicals. For the manufacturing process, mercury sulfide was required as a catalyst. Between 1951 and 1968, this highly toxic compound was released into Minamata Bay on a regular basis. To hide this from the public, Noguchi established a rule according to which Minamata citizens couldn't have a management position in the company, so they will not ask questions about mercury discharge. In 1944, Noguchi passed away. In a decade later, in Minamata there were 71 deaths and 6,000 with Minamata disease symptoms. More than 100,000 of citizens have other diagnoses mentioned in their medical analysis, but in fact they had the same Minamata disease. So, when the local authorities found a high level of mercury in fish, they didn't shut down the factory, but banned sale of this fish. Fishermen were shocked. They started to ask for more and more compensation and clear the bay of mercury. Chiso didn't agree. All they were saying is that during the war, Americans sunk the battleship with very dangerous ammunition. This is a cause, and we're not responsible for this. Then unexpectedly, angry villagers organized the first riot and laid siege to the factory. They were concerned about health issues and loss of income and asked for a fair compensation. All they achieved for the riot was a little money with a deduction for fence repair that was allegedly destroyed during the riot. However, Chiso took a formal step forward and finally installed a wastewater filtering system called Cyclata. The company's president proudly drank a glass of water supposedly treated in the system. But later, people revealed the truth, and the Cyclata appeared to be ineffective and didn't clean water from mercury. That was only a show. In 1968, the factory stopped producing acetaldehyde and discharging mercury, but nothing changed. The bay was still poisoned. Thousands of Minamata patients were ignored. In 1971, concerned citizens contacted Eugene Smith, a prominent American documentary photographer and military correspondent at Life. He could understand people and reflect it in his photo shoots. So Eugene and his girlfriend Aileen came to Minamata. They planned to work there for 3 months, but stayed for 3 years. Eugene came to one of these riots organized by the local environmental defenders to take some pictures for the Life magazine. The police used force to attack defenders and to disperse the riot. While working, Eugene was also attacked. The police hit him, damaged his camera, and harmed his hat. Assault on a journalist, especially a respected foreigner, caused the damage to the Chiso reputation. Soon after, the Chiso company published a press release saying that Mr. Smith allegedly fell into hysterics and hurt himself. These words made Eugene very furious. And do you remember the episode in the movie when Eugene and Aileen secretly came to the hospital of Chiso factory and found experiments on cats? I'm not sure that it's actually happened in reality, but there was a doctor in Chiso company who was conducting experiments on cats, making them drink water from the bay to show the company's board the terrifying results. Later, this doctor was immediately fired and his results were classified. One of the most shocking pictures that Eugene took during his stay in Minamata, and it's also a symbol of Minamata's environmental catastrophe, is the picture of Tomoko Uyemura in her bath. I can't show you this picture due to respect to Uyemura family, and her family banned to use this picture in public. The feature of this photo is that everyone in this picture is very vulnerable. The mother is holding and giving a bath to her deceased daughter. The photo is supported by a short description. This is Tomoko Uyemura. She was maimed by mercury poisoning in her mother's womb. Blind, speechless, crippled and deformed since birth, she must be bathed, fed, and cared for like an infant. She is now 17. This picture was a symbol for the fight for environmental justice in Minamata. And this is exactly what happened later. When photo got attention, the Uyemura family started to be interviewed. Other citizens rumored that Uyemura used their tragedy to make money. In 1977, Tomoko passed away and her parents forbade public use of this picture. But anyway, Eugene reached his goal: the worldwide attention to the Minamata environmental catastrophe. In 1973, victims won a case in court. Chiso was required to pay from 16 to 18 million yen to all classified Minamata deceased and to cover all medical expenses. Some lawsuits continued in the 2000s. At the end of 2010, more than 28,000 people got a deposit book for medical help. The government of Japan helped Chiso with the compensations and took over the cleansing of Minamata Bay. Now it's safe. The Minamata case was significant on international and national legal levels. The Japanese government took serious steps to introduce legislation on environmental protection. 15 new environmental laws were passed, giving Japan at that time the most stringent environmental protection laws in the world. These new laws included a Water Pollution Act and nationwide regulations of toxic discharges. The polluter pays principle was introduced. The National Environmental Agency, which later developed into Ministry of Environment, was founded. National government expenditures on environmental issues almost doubled between 1917 and 1975 and tripled at the local government level. On the international level, in 2013, 140 countries signed the Minamata Convention on Mercury. The objective of this convention is to protect human health and the environment from the anthropogenic emission and releases of mercury and mercury compounds. The treaty has provisions about the entire cycle of mercury, including the direct mining, release of emission, process and production, controls, export and import. It also limits industries that are related to mercury. From 2020, the convention prohibited the manufacture, import and export of some products containing mercury. These products are like some type of batteries, compact fluorescent lamps, relays, soaps, cosmetics, blood pressure devices, and mercury thermometers. And for the last words, the question I had all the time I was working on this material is, do we need thousands of people's life to start actions to protect humans' health and the environment? As I told you at the beginning of this video, that the Minamata case is just only one of the cases about environmental and industrial pollution. The final credits remind us about it. The movie's creators provided a list of such detrimental catastrophes and industrial pollution crimes. This is our lesson to learn. So that's all for me today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I just don't know what to add more about this story. It's so incredible. It's a mix of the people loyalty to nature and greedy for money, and yeah, that's it. Don't forget to hit the button with likes. It really motivates me, guys. Thank you again. Пока-пока.